Hey and welcome to the Creative Odyssey podcast, a podcast about entrepreneurship, creativity and personal growth by me, Emil Ruth. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hey and hello to this new episode, to this brand new episode with Radim Malinic. So, Radim, how are you?
I'm good. Very good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
I'm also excited to talk to you. And why don't you just introduce yourself?
So, my name is Radim Malinic. I'm a designer, author, and a podcast host, and a founder of various different creative companies. My background is in design, branding, and advertising, and I put focus on verbal and visual storytelling in my work. I'm currently working on my 7th book, which is inspired by my recent TEDx talk, and it's on the theme of daring creativity, daring forever, which is also the theme of my podcast. The reason for this focus is reacting to the world where a lot of creatives struggle with changes, how to adapt to the arrival of new technology and changes in the way how we run creative businesses. So I believe that we can build future-proof careers by becoming better storytellers, communicators, and creative leaders. My big plan is to encourage people to explore their daring creativity and pursuing ideas in the work they would otherwise regret never starting.
Let's just start with the first little question. Do you have something in mind that you kind of regretted you've never started?
No, I don't have to. This is a topic that I've been discussing with my guests on my own podcast, and looking back, regret is a very useless thing to have because I am where I am today, and I'm grateful for today to be, at this situation based on escapade, decisions, mistakes, failures, because ultimately I believe this is our creative destiny. This is the way how we create things. Of course, you can tell yourself, oh, I wish I had started this much sooner, or I wish this made more sense much, much sooner. Yeah. But then I believe everything happens for the right reason. So have I got regrets? No, I don't feel like that right now. No.
That's a good thing to do. And when I think about daring, it is more about maybe you could regret not starting sooner, but at least you started sometime. And the most obvious theme, I think, when talking about regret is never starting. So people who maybe had ideas and never get out of the habit of just creating ideas in their own heads.
I think we live in a world that kind of makes you believe. We live in a world that makes you feel that you need to be somebody or something else very quickly right now, because our surroundings, our society is heading, seemingly a million miles an hour right now. Because I think the reason why I don't regret my journey or any of my decisions mostly is because we had time to become someone, right? Because you had the time to formulate our ideas, try it, test it, validate it, pursue it. And if an idea doesn't go away, then you just keep going and actually make it happen. Because I think there's a saying that says that whatever you do, it takes 10 years to be really successful. And, the businesses that I've started, the books that I've been writing, sometimes you tell yourself, it would have been really nice to have something ready now. Yeah. But whatever the idea is now is a version 1, tomorrow is a version 2 or 1.1, and you validate it. And of course, you give yourself a deadline and say, okay, I need to publish something. Because mostly the reason why people don't put stuff out there is because they worry about perfectionism, which is a mask for shame or vulnerability and embarrassment, So it's a big concoction and big cocktail and of mixture of ingredients, how we operate as human beings. And then you put yourself out there with your creativity, with your soul, with your expression, and hope that people will love what you do. And to have that external validation, of course, that comes with loads of different feelings and sort of temptations to be validated and for us around.
Yeah, and I think most creatives are very influenced by the perception of their work. I mean, it is kind of a funny thing within itself that the most creative people are super insecure when it comes about judgment, and the people who are, I would say, it's hard to say, but I would just leave it like less creative people in terms of output or innovative ideas are usually more nonchalant when it comes about judgment. And the more heart and soul you pour into something to put out in the world, the more you risk it being attacked, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when you talk about creative and non-creative people, it's usually that the non-creative person or someone who doesn't see themselves creative is actually a lot more liberated in pursuing some ideas or spur of the moment ideas
Yeah.
because they don't worry about what people might think. So I always say that the most creative people are the one who are pissed off. You know, people with the protest placards, you know, protest like people who just
Yeah.
really feel about something. They are funny, they are strong, they go for it. But when you then sort of put it next to creative work, we got it easy. Like, you know, most creative work that we do is not that daring because we have to adhere to some sort of formulations through some rules. You know, when you think about branding or advertising,
Yeah.
it's not as something, it's not as strong, it's not as this, you know, it's not as sort of persuasive as some people who would actually believe that what they stand for could be seen as more creative and more expressive than someone who actually wants to be an artist, for example.
Is this like the distinction between fine arts and like commercial arts?
Well, I mean, of course, we create for different reasons. So commercial art is mostly created with a shareholder's price, you know, in
Yeah.
mind. Like we have to sort of create so there is a movement. Unfortunately, the formulas for running a business, obviously, doing something daring or doing something that potentially pushes the envelope can almost often ends up with this chaos, you know, Cracker Barrel rebrand or whatever was recently rebranded, like people who don't really give any monkeys about some sort of legacy brand. Jaguar was a good example.
Yeah.
Jaguar was example of a daring creativity,
Yeah.
and people go like, whoa, you know,
Too
people
much.
don't know how to navigate it, and you're thinking like, what? It's either for you or not for you. You know, like you know, just, I doubt that lots of people who've been talking about Cracker Barrel have ever been to Cracker Barrel,
No.
and
Yeah.
it's just a sort of this blind panic, like uninformed panic, because like let's take time and see what will happen because many things that we know now, even the likes of Coca-Cola, have changed in the past. It's an evolution, and some people just don't want to accept it because it's about the now and not a long-term thinking.
Yeah. And the development and like transformation of brands should be done in a very like conservative way in terms of development of a logo, for example. And I've seen this, I think, was in a course from Sagi Haviv from Chermayev, and you know, probably know them. He stated there's multiple ways on how to rebrand. Either way, you take elements and transform them into something that is like a more of an abstraction of the heritage version, or you just take something that is so new and has barely anything to do and feels maybe too harsh for someone. And I think most people who would say that they encourage daring designs or innovation are usually still a bit more conservative in their taste than they might think.
I've got a good observation. There was a comedian called Sean Locke, English comedian, and he said once jokingly, like, people over 65 shouldn't be able to vote because it's not their future. You know, like they've, let's be honest, like when you get to 65, you know, it's about 10, potentially 20, 25 years, you know, potentially not. And these people, because there's going to be a lot more people who are older or around that mark,
Yeah.
are deciding the future for people who are younger. And when I think about branding, it's almost like the brand, the rebrand, retooling, refresh, whatever you want to see it.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily always created for the people who are older. It's actually created for the future of the brand. Therefore, it needs to appeal to a wider spectrum. But it's the people who've got more time to have complain.
Mm.
They get themselves vocal about something. But when you scale it down, like we have created a society, we have created a space for opinions that we should be really focusing on bigger problems. Like we should be really focusing on like what is the future of the society, of the planet, of the environment.
Yeah.
But you know what? when people complain about stuff, they don't deal with bigger problems, therefore they're distracted, and that's why the whole melee of chaos starts, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to sort of speculate about some conspiracies, but like, you know, when you think about it, like we've got a lot of clever people that can do a lot of good work, and we have often fragmented a society where people really care about themselves. They care about engagement. The number of suggested articles I got from LinkedIn about Cracker Barrel was just like, really? It was like every hour, it was like another Cracker Barrel article. I was like, this is not about development or evolution of our creative careers. This is purely about engagement. It's for the traffic
Yeah,
on
yeah.
and I think we getting ourselves in this sort of cul-de-sac where we should be running exciting networks of creatives that really want to work together about making things better, more efficient, more, I was going to say more explosive, but like more
Yeah.
engaging, that
Yeah.
we can do stuff together rather than, you know, be together and vote for the future that's beneficial to all of us rather than just, you know, get 500 likes on Cracker Barrel posts and then, you know, and then you go
Yeah.
again and wait for another brand to rebrand and, you know, have a more, you know,
I think that
fury.
the whole rebranding thing is one of the most discussed things that I see. And maybe I'm biased because I do care about design and I'm interested in it, but I seen it in like university rebrands, Jaguar, Cracker Barrel. And I'm from Germany. I've never had any connection to that. And the first thing that I really heard about it is just a stupid rebrand. And it's the whole conservative versus woke versus minimalism or tradition. And and the first point I see there's like validity in their arguments, that it's kind of a pity that you strip away some like heritage moments you might feel connected to if you have a connection to that place or brand or whatever. But after a certain point, as you just said, it's just clickbait, rage bait, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. I mean, of course, we have a lot of good that's happening, but we are all individually responsible of how we collectively vote with our time for the
Yeah.
benefit of the evolution of what we do creatively, philosophically, you know, like how do we push forward? Because we have given people likes, we have given them the analytics and engagement and follower count.
Mm.
And that's how we get external validations in people's minds. Therefore, that influences the way how they vote with their time.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we've homogenized the way the acceptance or the external validation works, and I think it has really diverted from where we can actually put energy in the better spaces. So this is one of the reasons why I believe in my concept of daring creativity. I'm building a micro network. I'm writing a book. I'm doing a podcast about the fact that we can inspire one another. We can do just one thing slightly differently. And you don't need 2,000 likes on LinkedIn to inspire someone's life. Actually, you need to influence 5 people. If you influence
Yeah.
5 people, that's enough, because that 5 people can do another. So that's 25, you know. And I think we just sort of work on more human side of creativity and actually rewind it back and realize it's like 20 years ago, it was all different.
Mm.
Then we had the arrival of this mostly of these platforms. And in my case, I was 20 odd, you know, I was mid 20s. I had a background of like seeing how validation of the work or acceptance of the work was more client based, more sort of society based. Like you could see the reach was shorter or smaller,
Yeah.
but you had more of a contact with the work putting out there and then hearing back. Whereas we've opened our doors to everyone, which meant we can work with anyone. You get fans and people who like your work or potential clients from around the world. But to people who got into the industry at that time, they've been only ever used to creating things and waiting for people to actually like it. So, excuse me. So for those people that, 15, I don't know, 12, 15, 16, they only know their portfolio careers by having external validation in the form of metrics, being a follower count, being a number of likes.
Yeah.
And that messes your mind, because then you're thinking, where we heading with the creative work. It was beautifully summarized by one of my friends called Bertrand Rast, who said we've relabeled art into content.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we've got content creators who show you how to click here and there and there, and they call themselves educators. Well, all we have now is loads of tutorials about how to use Figma, how to use this, and that. But are we really pushing people to solve bigger problems? Are we really pushing them, to developing things that potentially can have bigger impact on how we create longevity in our careers? Because one of the things I said earlier in my intro is like, my big game is to encourage people to have multifaceted careers.
Yeah.
Because everything's changing. The content creation, it will go away. Like it's the bite-sized content will go away. We are focusing potentially on micro communities and showing people that you can have a really strong, like a future-proof career by focusing on what you stand for. Like, because chasing the shiny bits, it's lovely. Getting likes is lovely, but that's today. What is there for a 10-year sort of, career or 15-year career? That I think that's where the daring creativity really lies, because loads of people have beautiful philosophies, beautiful reasons for creating, but maybe the focus is in the wrong place.
Yeah, I can see that. And just as you say it, like chasing the shiny things, and instantly in my mind just popped up like these, all of a sudden, all over the place on LinkedIn, on X, where these so-called AI experts who are just showcasing a number of tools to do this or that, and they have not the real technical ability behind that, so they are not in like the mathematical sense an AI expert. They just show like random tools, and I've seen at the first few posts I thought it was like I gained some knowledge, I knew more about tools I had, but now I'm unfollowing all of them because it's just boring. It's soulless. It's just content. It's nothing. It's nothing I can not figure out somewhere else. It's just something with not longevity, really.
I mean, when you think about it, now I don't want this conversation to be sort of all doom and gloom, but what the reason why we're talking about all of this is that the algorithms, be it YouTube, LinkedIn, like Instagram, it gets you hooked when it makes you anxious. When the social media is create on anxiety, the attention engineers are very much winning on every platform, because they will tell you, oh, you need to know this, or you need to know that. Oh, there's an early adopter, and there's this. So the virality of the content is what travels. And I think, it's easy, like the AI experts were experts on Jaguar branding, and then before they were NFT specialists, and before they were crypto artists, and before that they were unsuccessful designers. It's easy to make noise about stuff that you know a little bit, because we are all working it out. But when you think about it, especially from the personal experience, I remember the arrival of generative AI showed up. And let's be honest, and I'm going to swear, like lots of people nearly shut themselves. They were like, oh shit, we've got AI, I'm going to be out of my job.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if you are so easily out of your own job or out of your work, or, if your business collapses this quickly, something is fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, we are problem solvers, we are creatives. Like when you think how you can potentially adapt the technology to our benefits of what we do and how we operate our businesses, how we can automate, how we can help ourselves with automation, AI, you realize that actually not only you can solve bigger problems, you can solve them faster. And actually you can be an expert in actually helping to apply the technology for our clients and make all of this more functioning. Because, we go back to printing presses, photography, like we always had shakeups. And those shakeups always brought us more efficiency, more explorations, more development. But because we live in a world of self-centered creativity mostly, when you see it from your own point of view and say, oh, I can be replaced by technology, then you haven't really thought out what is your creative philosophy. And that's a sort of generalization. But I've embraced AI in the best possible way, because I can do so much more, so much better, so much faster. And I've realized that put in focus on the storytelling, put in focus on visual communication, it helps to guide people through these times because there's so much more to give. And it all stems from being able to explore creativity and be daring about it.
Yeah, I can totally agree with you. It's like one of the most recurring themes here is that really creativity also means being able to adapt and benefit from the technological development instead of being afraid of it, and really making the most out of it. And it's just the thing that kind of takes away the fear that you might have in an individual level and make really the best out of it. The other thing that I might also be worried about, or I've heard some are worried about, is their own creative output. As you said, daring creativity also can mean, at least I think it could also mean daring making mistakes or being yourself and not over engineer your own work through AI.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about how we go with the progress of our creative careers, I always try to make a parallel between like an athlete. So anyone, let's take a 15-year-old in Germany, right? Interested in design, potentially 12-year-old, like, the interest and the breakthrough is much, much younger. So
Yeah.
you get 12-year-old, shall I get it right? And they want to get into graphic design. Because we've created the plethora of tools, mock-ups, fonts, colors, previous work, like we've got this playground, this sort of, let's call it Lego pieces that you can put together and things look pretty good. You don't
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
have a huge strategy because you can make the shiny pretty quickly. So you do it, and then you're thinking, right, okay, so now I'm listening to the world of business, and the world of business tells me I need to up my prices. Well, at that time you might be 14 and you try to command big prices. You're like, well, you haven't really grown as a person just yet to solve the bigger
Yeah.
problems because you don't know what is out there. So when you see it as an athlete, or let's say a football player or anybody else, like an ice hockey player, you
Mhm.
go through years and years and years of development until you can play for the main team or maybe for the country. And the narrow bit is like to get to the top, you really have to be good and understand how to solve a lot of different problems. You
Yeah.
also have to work on yourself. You've got philosophers, psychologists, masseurs, like sports, physios. They
Mhm.
really help you to become really all-rounded really all-rounded sort of creative or performer that can really achieve things, be resilient, self-accept, be curious, have gratitude. That is a massive mixture of skills and abilities. Because when you arrive, let's say, to run 100 meters or to play the big match, there is so many sort of touch points, so many decision points that you need to process and need to process them well.
Yeah.
So I think I wanted to say we've glorified creative process, but we've made it inherently much, much easier to create good work, but we've also created a lot of the same. And to break through of that, you need to really think like, how do we do it? How can we actually improve? And actually, where do I stand for on my own expression and what problems I can solve? Because ultimately, you can charge whatever prices you want to charge when you really can go and run with the problem for your client, for the companies, for the brands, because it's about the skill, it's about the understanding, it's about having that perception of like, when everyone's panicking, you can stand,
Yeah.
you can stand back and go, okay, I'm going to listen, I'm going to observe what's happening, I'm going to ask all the questions so I can understand what I'm doing, and then make a decision. But we live in a place, obviously we live in times where everyone wants to solve a problem really quickly, and sometimes slowing down and taking time, it doesn't seem as valuable as it really should be.
Yeah. It's really hard to really just try and take your time, and it's something I find myself a lot in when I try to be creative and not use the shortcuts, but I know they're out there. I can be quicker. I want to be more authentic, but I want to get it done at the same time. And this is why I'm more often than I want go for the route of maybe generating a text and then maybe discussing it later because it sounds too generic. But for getting like the job done, tools like that can work. But I mean, it could be that most of your work is maybe diluted through this whole collected mess of all kinds of creative work. Could it be generative, like images or text or whatever?
Ultimately, when you think about it, it's like, how do you scale down your career? Because at the beginning of our careers, we feel invincible because you create something, it works. That makes you believe that you can do anything, which is the beautiful feeling, only to realize that, when you feel like a superhero, Lex Luthor, Kryptonite shows up. This is my Superman analogy. And then realize, to get from A to B, there is possibilities of it not working out. And you're trying to, in a way of sort of pursuing daring creativity, also you're fighting against shame and vulnerabilities and, perfectionism. All of that sort of cocktail is like, you want to create, ultimately, I don't think there's anyone who would say, I'm happy to create good work once a month. For the rest of it, I'm happy to struggle. No, because we all dream about the fact that you want to create good work every day, be happy every day, make clients happy, get really well paid, and have an easy life. The problem is that there's no such thing as an easy life. There's no such thing as end of problems. Like, the reason why things work is because we overcome obstacles. We try and something more. We ask more questions. We show our growth. And when we accept it, when, the problems are actually bigger part of creativity than the creativity itself, then you can relax and go, you know what? I don't have to produce a piece of work every day for me to enjoy it or for someone else to like it. What is my way of growing and answering questions? Because from my perspective, from my personal experience, I used to do this. I used to create thousands of images, literally a couple of thousand images of like illustrations and designs and that kind of stuff. Do I remember any of it? No. But, it was just like, it's the ideas that stayed with me, that I was sort of milling around at, the likes of my books and my coffee company and some of my podcast work is like those ideas. I have chosen what is my own expression. Where do I feel very at home, shall I say? Because those things are the most authentic. Like, I do not care what other people do and how. I pay attention to it. I appreciate it. But ultimately, I make my own decisions of what I want to bring to the world because I believe some of the stuff I wish existed there, and therefore I created.
Can see myself totally in it. And even though I do not have like the years in like a specific career, when I started producing music more and wanted to go professional with it, I wondered how I can manage my output. How can I get placements? Something like that. And I came across like advice like finish 5 or 10 beats a day. And this is something that stuck with me. And this whole thing, whenever I did not like finish so many things, and the equivalent of 1,000 images might be 1,000 different musical audio projects filling up my hard drive, and barely anything is finished. And I still sometimes replay the ones in my production phase where I felt like a machine producing these tracks. And they were good, kind of dull. At least there are some kind of finished. But it's so hard to have the sweet spot. I do have like 30-second snippets of something that sounds amazing, and I have no idea how to make it a complete track. And others that are just 3 minutes, pretty paced, similar structure things, and barely anything. It's like the output, I think, is the hardest part.
It sounds interesting. It sounds like a turmoil because, I mentioned, let's say a couple of pieces of work.
Yeah.
It mostly showed me what I wanted to do, what I wanted to do more of, and what I had to do a lot less of, or not at all. Because that development phase, that when you talk about music, there was this saying I once heard, like make 100 tracks in 100 different styles of music, and then see what really gets you excited and where your heart is. Because the development part that you talked about, like, that's cool. Like, actually, like trying to and exploring things. At this stage of your life, in your career, you've got time to do it. If you have family, you run a couple of different businesses or whatever, the space to experiment is shorter. But having experimented in the past, that gives you an idea. Like, that gives you, that sort of, as I was talking about, a creative athletes. Like, you running that 100 meters,
Mm.
you're training, you're developing, and that helps you then react to situations when, for example, you're not solving a beat, you're not solving a musical problem, but you're working with a client who wants to tell a story,
Yeah.
and you say, well, actually, through the form of, let's say, musical expression, we can apply this logic and bring a totally different element to creative process, where other people will be very much going, yeah, it needs to look more like Cracker Barrel. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
I've got actually ideas how I can do this because they are based on something. So yeah, I mean, I was involved in music, like death metal and grunge and the kind of stuff, and then business and management, and all of these things bring a unique skill set to creative problems. Which, yeah, having that development playground is great, but what's more liberating is actually not expecting anything from it,
Yeah.
because it might be beat number 277 that you can then sort of revisit and go back to it. But one thing, if I actually think about regrets, one thing I would regret is going sometimes too fast. Because I was running at one stage, very busy, very successful studio with a lot of work, with a lot of fun. We created a lot of like incredible stuff. And when I scaled back and had time to reflect on what we created, only then I had time to actually really appreciate the creativity, volume, the craft, because it's almost like, I'm going to make a weird analogy about a train, but imagine like you're on a train and the train goes fast. So you just catch a few frames here and there. Sometimes you stop at a station, you go, 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 go. Let's say you're on that train and you take pictures from your window.
Mm.
When you get to your destinations, only then you can go, let's have a look what I've done and what I've been. Because having that time to reflect and analyze and actually remind yourself what you really like is so important. Because, I mean, I'm not shitting on content creators, but it's a numbers game, like this
Yeah,
and
it
this
is.
and this, and you're like stacking things on top. I don't know the analytics. I don't know the the engagement, like, but how many people scroll somewhere to the bottom and go, I'm gonna check out a reel from 2016, if even reels existed then. Like, it's very much
Yeah.
about the now. It's about the
Yeah.
now. But having time to process your work and actually understand what you've created, and taking time and actually revisit things and say, you know what, as opposed to needing to look for new ideas, the track that you didn't know how to finish, it might come to you 2 years later.
Yeah.
But it's that curiosity which is some of our biggest gifts. Like, you can actually explore the work, and it doesn't matter about time, because somehow it always takes 10 years for something to really materialize, to be good, to have the right understanding of what we're doing. And I think the biggest and hardest task now here is just to have that patience
Mm.
to actually say, you know what, I do not have to win award next year. I need to do the work for the right reason, have the right philosophy, nurture, let's say, business relationships with clients, because you can see people moaning about the fact, like, hey, I've got these NDA projects and I thought they would change my life, but the NDA projects I can't show, therefore I'm not getting new work.
Yeah.
That's just an excuse. Like, I haven't updated my website since 2019. It's 2025. I haven't looked for new clients since 2022 because we have created a whole experience of working directly, solving people's problems, listening, asking questions, understanding, observing. And that's what it is. And it's because we've slowed down. We've slowed down and really actually enjoyed looking at what's being created
Mm.
and then making those decisions based on that.
Sounds like a very mindful and reflective approach, and I can totally see that. My stage of life, and I'm 26. I'm a bit out of the phase where I'm like super ambitious in any kind of field and going extremely fast. Wanting everything to be like done so quickly, and I need to be successful super fast. I got a bit away from that, but I'm still like super ambitious and think everything I do needs to be great, and kind of get the anxiety of not being on the right page. I think like the Creative Odyssey, and it started out as a podcast, but I think it could be just much more, and I feel more comfortable within my creative pursuit than I've ever done before, because I put myself in like boxes too much, where I think I'm now a music producer and I have to fit in this certain imagery or now I stepped away from being a music producer. I'm focused more on like entrepreneurial studies and stuff like that. But that was just another box. And now it's slowly kind of getting more aligned.
I think we've got here what's called paradox of choice, because you can be today anyone you want to be, which is freaking exciting. Like, you don't like what you're doing? Quit, start something, give it a shot, give it a try. Don't know how to do it? Look it up, buy a course, read a book. You know, as I keep saying, there's this expression of like creative athletes. You know, I'm a cyclist, and I realize getting faster is not about getting better bike. It's about doing the work off bike, you know, like going to the gym, doing strength and conditioning, doing mental strength, you know, exercises. The same with creativity. If you're a designer, you're not going to spend more hours in Figma by being a better designer. Actually, it's about understanding humans, understanding yourself, and kind of, as you used the word, authentically, like, you know, am I working more authentically? Because the world doesn't need more clones. The world needs more experts who can actually, no, okay, and maybe the word expert is not right, but like the world needs more people who believe in exploring creative philosophies and how do we bring it together? Because ultimately, you know, when I was in my early 20s, I moved to the UK. I was like, oh, everything makes sense now.
Mm.
And somebody said, who was in my age back then, he said, yeah, there's a lot more to understand, you know,
Yeah.
which brings me back to, let's say, the development player in a football squad. You know, like, you're going to be a lot better. When you're younger, you're faster and stronger. But when you get to your 30s or early 40s, you slow down, but you don't mess about with 15 different ideas. You go, I've been thinking about this for a year, and this is the decision I'm going to make. And
Yeah.
usually you find that when you're working with clients, when you're young, you're like, hey, I don't like your idea. I can give you a better idea. I can do 5 different options. I'm going to do this. And you find yourself working with clients who are a bit older. They're like, no. This is what we want. And you're like, no. They're like, no. We want this. And you're like, why do you want that? I want this, nothing else. And you're like, no. I'll give you 2 different options. No. I want this. Just do this and we're done. Like, you don't need to experiment, because the older you get, you stop fussing. You realize, you know what? I have already tried 20 beats a day, or 3 songs, or 1,000 songs. You know, like, you know, that when you look at people like Max Martin, let's say, you know, the producer, of course they go through options, but they know where they want to get. You know, they know what they're trying to evoke. What is the number of syllables in a chorus? What is the chord structure? What is the bridge? They don't muck about, you know, because they're working with a formula that they know how to appeal to people. In 20 years' time, you'll be like, oh, this makes a lot more sense. And you can potentially thank yourself for saying, as long as I'm working, I don't have to go to a full-time job, flipping burgers or whatever. You are already living life that a lot more people on this planet can't ever live, which is
you're
massive
right.
privilege.
Yeah. I don't know if it's specifically like a me thing, but I'm like super idealistic that I want to be these. I have like people like Rick Rubin in mind. So being like a super creative guru and just like applying your taste and your sense of the creative work is almost enough. But I think you are right with the point, which is way more down to earth, that you can, if you step down and try to be crazy creative every time, you find a sweet spot where you're very good and you can repeatedly do this, and you would probably have a much better career and a more fulfilling career if you're willing to accept that, than trying to become the superstar guru in the first place.
Well, I've got a question for you, because, like, how many more Rick Rubins do you know? There's only one Rick Rubin.
Yeah, Rick
And
Rubin is a very specific example. Yeah.
And I mean, and you can think like, oh, Rick Rubin must be living this amazing life. You know, it just seems very poetic, right?
Yeah.
He lives his own life, you know, like I admire every time I see an interview with Rick Rubin. I was like, it's almost like a blinkered view. Like, okay, this is what I do. This is what I believe in. Like he was doing an interview with Rick Beato, and they were talking about something from like 1982, let's say. Don't quote me on the right year. In track, and I'm like, let's be honest, like, I think it's a piece of shit. But he's like, we did cool work and we did this, and he believes in, like, there's no There's no regrets. There's nothing like this is my journey. This is what I did. This is the da 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 da, and I'm here today with the wealth of knowledge. Well, what we do now, because there's an external validation in terms of numbers, follower counts, and statistics and analytics and all of that. How good is my work? And sometimes we don't judge the work because of ourselves. We value like how well it's received. But what you have to give to Rick Rubin, that I don't think he ever really cared how well it's received, because it did well. But to him, that was not the measure of the next step. The next step was all about how can we create something that changes? How can we follow our expression? How can we follow our hearts? And people will join us to do this. And when you hear interviews with him, there's like, yeah, I can't work a desk. I can't work a computer. I can't work this, because he's there mainly. And again, I'm going to repeat those 4 words. Like, he listens, he observes, he asks questions to understand what they're doing. And when you realize those 4 words and those 4 actions, that's the biggest superpower, in my opinion, that you can have as a creative and as a human, because we don't always want to make immediate reaction or have an immediate reaction to a problem. Sometimes we are asked for immediate thoughts about a problem.
Yeah.
And we get ourselves in trouble. We get ourselves on the wrong road by answering too quickly, by making quick decisions. When you see Rick Rubin chatting, like, he's in no hurry anywhere, right? He's not going to go like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's blue. Definitely the answer is blue. Like, no. I've been here for 2 seconds. What do you want? Tell me everything. Let's have a conversation. I might give you an answer or an idea tomorrow, but there's no rush. And I think that's the beautiful part that I've been sort of decoding recently, because I wish I had slowed down. I wish I had asked more questions. I wish I had observed more of the situation, because I often say that creative industry is based on 4 elements, which is ambition, ego, insecurity, and anxiety. Equal measure. Like, when you think about it, our ego is our sense of identity. You want to be someone. Like, let's say I would love to be a Rick Rubin. Ambition is like, I want to do this as my work, as my career. I'm going to do that. But you know what? I'm not always right. You know, if I'm not always sure if I'm doing it right, if I'm a bit ambitious, I'm a little bit insecure, and I'm anxious about if I'm doing, if this is the right choice. And it's this washing machine of 4 elements that you're like, because we overanalyze things, but when you step out and do the other 4, which is listen, ask, observe, and understand, you realize that all of a sudden the world is more quieter. It doesn't, it doesn't necessarily require immediate reaction, because, some people have written 100 books. Some people have wrote 1 book. Some people did 200 podcast episodes. Some people did 1 episode. It's just like, how much do you want to connect with people, and how much you want to have a more direct conversations, because the world makes us believe that if you do next Joe Rogan or Stephen Bartlett, that somehow that gives you more satisfaction, more success, more money. But it only makes your world much busier, more noisier. And some people are destined to be that, and most of us are not. Most of us can actually influence the people around us in a way that we can be that positive change in their life, and just do that with heart and accept that, you know what, I'm influencing my community, I'm influencing my people, I'm doing my work. And if 1 person likes it, that's enough,
That's I can see that, and thank you for the answer on that. And it kind of answered multiple things for me. One thing that it seems to me like you answered the question why I am drawn to figures like Rick Rubin is because he resembles something that I am currently not, which is calm and confident about his work. And I'm all in for like the insecurities and the struggles and setbacks, and that's all what this Odyssey theme is about. And I can see why this seems like something so unattainable and like heroic, because he knows what he has done, and he's so calm and clear and confident about that, and he seems like he's super aligned with what was done, and he's not like super insecure when it comes to questioning himself, or at least he seems like that. And it's what he's portraying. It's like this imagery that lives on my head. I have my own version of him inside of my head. I don't know how he is in person. I've seen him on stage, which I unfortunately did. but this the whole thing, and this is just like one creative, I don't know how you could say that, like a thematic figure or like a symbolic figure inside of my head. And the other thing with like the frequency as an example, how much you want to connect with the people. And I'm putting this out here, like the Creative Odyssey episodes every 2 weeks, as like a way to stay a bit more calm and to have more time to produce it regularly and put them out on a regular basis. But I always thought it would be better if I do it weekly. I still had that little voice in my mind that it's better to do it weekly, and I'm just doing a more comfortable but a bit more lazy approach. But with what you said, you made clear that it's totally fine to do this every 2 weeks if I'm comfortable and I'm producing a much better conversation through that way. And I have no reason to feel guilty that I need to produce more.
I mean, you have to ask yourself who is waiting for the podcast, because let's be honest, no one's waiting for another book, no one's waiting for another podcast, no one's waiting for another website or another brand.
It's oversaturated, right?
I mean, yeah, you can see it because we got more access to more tools and more possibilities to publish stuff. So we have created a lot more content. Therefore, a regular podcast has up to 500 listens if you're lucky. But that doesn't matter, because if you spoke to people, they'd be like, hey, I really want to have podcasts where 1,000 people listen to it every week, or 5,000 people. But the question is, are you ready to speak to 5,000 people? It's like being on stage, you know, like you might do a design talk to 50 people and do it okay. Like, to be in front of 5,000 people, you really need to double down on what you know, how you change, like what you present and how you do it, because there's no such thing as laziness. Like, you're already making the stuff, you know.
Yeah.
You get to see frequency of, let's say, I publish 2 episodes a week. But one of them is an interview, one of them is a bonus interview. I've got methods to do this. You know, I work with a podcast producer. I've got automations in place. I've got everything that can be automated is automated. I run an editorial pass. I record a bonus episode. I use AI for notes and for scripting, you know, that kind of stuff. I use AI as a what I call a powerful calculator.
Yeah,
and I can produce those episodes with about 2.5 hours every week, right? Because it works for me. I have created this, my drive for all of this is that I enjoy these conversations. To me, it's a networking, it's a relationship building, and I'm giving platform to other people and be really curious about their journeys, because ultimate part in our creativity that holding us back is, and I mentioned a zillion times on this conversation already, is that we look for external validation. So you put something out there and you hope that something will come back. When you take Rick Rubin, he doesn't really write music. He helps other people succeed. He actually does stuff for other people. So when you start running a podcast, when you create a platform for other people, when you give them space to be heard, to talk, to express themselves, you are creating a different value in this industry, because we got a lot of people who want to be recognized for their creativity, but you get a lot further with generosity and curiosity than just your creativity, because when it's no longer about you, you have different expectations, and it doesn't matter if you publish one good conversation once a year or once a month or every 2 weeks. It's about how do you really sort of double down on the conversation that, again, you know, can change the narrative out there, and what is it that you're adding, because, you know, we've got 3 million different podcasts out there now, and the world still needs that micro show to talk to particular people. Let's say in a position like yourself, being 25, 26, this is what you need to hear now. So I think we've democratized the information sort of distribution so well that you can find your own micro tribe and listen to people who feel the same like you. Who ask me, I'm 20 odd years ahead of you on this journey, and we're like, yeah, I'll happily tell you, because I wish this content existed. I wish I could tune into this content when I was in your age, to slow down, to actually stop fretting, to stop the fighting, to stop the nonsense, and say, you know what, double down, slow down.
Yeah, and it's really, I enjoy these conversations, because it's not something that I'm creating and which has like a deadline when in the sense of I can perfect it in a way. I can edit episodes to an extent, but all in all, it's like the unfiltered version of myself and me being really curious. And this is something that sometimes creative work is lacking. So this emphasized really the part where I'm curious and want to learn something, as an aside that I do not have these kind of conversations too much outside of this format. So that's why I'm very grateful. And I hope for all, definitely, I think it's like a compliment that you would have listened to this 20 years ago.
I mean, it's generally the information. I mean, the reason why I write books is to write books that I wish existed when I was 20 years younger. I wish there was tools when I really needed them.
Yeah.
Because what you're, for example, doing, which is similar to my show, like I approach every conversation with no questions. You know, I always got a blank piece of paper, and I go wherever it takes me. Because ultimately, the biggest liberating fact about careers is to be yourself. You know, it sounds very be yourself. When you tell everyone, okay, I've got anxieties, I've got insecurities, this is my problems, this is how I potentially could do things better, you don't have to remember anything. Like if I say, look, I've got certain, I mean, even, today, the way I do work, there's still certain fears, there's still certain obstacles that I need to overcome, because I will never have it finished. I will never be sort of, 100% there.
Yeah.
But when I talk about it on my show, when I talk from my work, I feel liberated because I don't have to hide. I don't have to worry that someone thinks, oh, you've got these fears or these anxieties, therefore it makes you slightly less of a creative or less celebrated creative. To me, it's like, this is what I do. And you know what? Because I talk about it, I'm relating, there are a lot more people relating to what I'm saying rather than going, hey, I've got a pretty picture. Do you like it? They were like, I don't care about your picture.
Yeah.
But I value the words,
That's right. I'm super excited for your upcoming book. I'm also writing a book. I'm on the way to finish it. I'm editing. It's the hardest part for me to actually say it's done and to polish it. But I will send you the current manuscript if you'd like to. And I'm going to check out your other books as well. And I think everyone who listens to the show should also check out the episodes. Do you have any other recommendation you might
do you have a
share with us?
I mean, if you can tune into my podcast, Daring Creativity, Daring Forever, I'm talking to all sorts of people about incredible things. Yeah, I'll be starting, whenever this comes out and whenever people listen to this, I'll be starting a micro community called Daring Creativity, where I want to create this community where people can actually share all of this stuff and actually have a place where they can feel safe and express themselves and find like-minded souls. If there's one advice I would give to yourself or anyone listening to this, is loosen up and find collaboration, get other people to help you and see, like, open your viewpoint and let go, because it's so easy to do too much and hoping to get credit for everything that you do, only to find yourself realizing that you could have done a lot more, explore more, practice more with help of others, because you're only as good as the people that you put together and the group of people you put together and the work that you do. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. But yeah, you can find me at radim.malinic. That's my Instagram account. But yeah, radimmalinig.co.uk, and that just takes links to everywhere else. And yeah,
thank you for taking the time, and hopefully we will talk in another episode, or I will come on to your show if you'd like to. Let's see you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today. Thank you.
Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to my podcast, you can show support by following me and hit the bell to never miss out on my latest content. I'd appreciate a positive review too. You can find more of my content on www.emilruth.com. Thanks and bye for now.